Ambassador Susan Clark stood at the viewport of the diplomatic vessel as it approached the massive space station that served as the gateway to the Orion Imperium. Stars glittered against the blackness of space, but they paled in comparison to the golden glow of the station's ornate architecture. After decades of searching the stars for intelligent life, humanity had finally made contact 6 months ago. This first official visit represented humanity's greatest hope for a peaceful future among the stars. Mom, you need to relax. Your shoulders are practically touching your ears, said Melissa Clark, the ambassador's 19-year-old daughter. She brushed her blonde hair back and adjusted her formal blue uniform. As part of the cultural exchange program, Melissa and 5 other young women had been selected to represent Earth's next generation. Susan smiled at her daughter. I've spent my whole career preparing for this moment, but nothing really prepares you for meeting beings from another world. The ship docked with a soft thud. Captain Richard Bell's voice came over the intercom. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Orion Gateway Station. Please prepare for disembarkation. The delegation of 20 humans gathered in the airlock. Diplomats, scientists, and the 6 young women of the cultural exchange program. Besides Melissa, there was Lisa Morgan, the daughter of General William Morgan, Amy Peterson, a brilliant physics student, Catherine Wright, a talented musician, Nicole Barnes, who spoke 7 Earth languages and had quickly picked up basic Orion, and Heather Grant, whose artistic skills had impressed even the aliens during preliminary communications. The airlock hissed open, revealing a reception hall with soaring ceilings covered in what looked like moving star maps. Waiting for them were the Orions, tall, elegant beings with bluish skin and 4 arms. They wore elaborate robes that seemed to shift colors with each movement. An Orion stepped forward, bowing slightly. Welcome, humans, to the Imperium. I am Sendar, First Minister to Emperor Zarax, ruler of 10,000 worlds. His Imperial Majesty extends his personal invitation to feast with him this evening. Susan stepped forward and bowed in return. On behalf of Earth, we are honored by your welcome and the Emperor's invitation. The humans were escorted to luxurious quarters where they prepared for the evening's banquet. None of them noticed the small scanning devices hidden in the walls, analyzing their biology, or the way certain Orion guards paid special attention to the 6 young women. The Imperial Banquet Hall dazzled the human delegation. Floating lights resembling miniature stars illuminated tables laden with exotic foods. Emperor Zarax sat on an elevated throne, watching the proceedings with 6 pupil-less eyes that seemed to evaluate everything with cold calculation. Your Majesty, Susan addressed the Emperor after being introduced. Humanity looks forward to peaceful relations and mutual exchange of knowledge with the Orion Imperium. The Emperor's translator relayed his response. We too see great potential in our relationship with Earth. Your species has achieved much despite your isolation. We find your biological diversity fascinating. As the feast progressed, Susan noticed several Imperial guards moving closer to the table where the 6 young women sat. Something felt wrong. Years of diplomatic instincts set off warning bells in her mind. She stood to approach her daughter when Emperor Zarax raised one of his 4 hands. At this signal, guards swiftly surrounded the young women. What is the meaning of this? Susan demanded, rushing forward only to be blocked by more guards. The Emperor spoke, his translator conveying his words with emotionless precision. These specimens will serve a higher purpose in our biological research division. You should be honored. Few primitive species receive such attention from the Imperium. Chaos erupted as the guards seized Melissa, Lisa, Amy, Catherine, Nicole, and Heather. The girls struggled and screamed. Susan broke past the guards blocking her and grabbed one of the aliens holding her daughter. You cannot do this. They are citizens of Earth, not specimens. Emperor Zarax rose from his throne. I can do whatever I wish. The Orion Imperium has ruled this galaxy for 10,000 years, while your kind was still discovering fire. The remaining delegation will return to Earth with our terms for future interactions. Consider these females our first tribute. The last thing Susan saw before guards dragged her away was the terror in her daughter's eyes as Melissa was carried through a doorway on the far side of the hall. 3 days later, the human diplomatic vessel returned to Earth, minus 6 young women, and carrying a message that would forever change humanity's place in the galaxy. The United Nations Security Council chamber fell silent as Ambassador Susan Clark finished speaking. Her voice had remained steady throughout her account of the abductions, but the rage in her eyes burned like distant stars. Representatives from every nation on Earth sat in stunned silence. "They took my daughter," Susan said, breaking the silence that followed her report. "They took her and 5 other young women like they were collecting butterflies for a display case." President Elizabeth Warren of the United States was the first to speak. "Ambassador Clark, I want to assure you that the United States considers this an act of war. We will not rest until Melissa and the others are returned safely." Similar statements followed from other world leaders. For the first time in human history, every nation agreed on one thing. The Orion Imperium had made a terrible mistake. Admiral John Murphy, head of Earth's newly formed Space Defense Force, stepped forward. The tall, gray-haired man carried a data tablet as he approached the central podium. "Madam President, distinguished representatives, there's something you need to know," he said. "The abduction of these 6 women wasn't the first. We have evidence that the Orion Imperium has been taking humans for years." He tapped his tablet, and the large screen behind him filled with images of remote locations: a small fishing village in Alaska, a research station in Antarctica, a mountain climbing expedition in Nepal, all places where people had mysteriously vanished. "We've detected unusual energy signatures at each of these locations that match the technology used by the Orion ships," Murphy explained. "Conservative estimates suggest they've taken at least 200 humans over the past decade. We believe these were isolated incidents until now." General William Morgan stood up. Unlike the others, he wore full military dress. The medals on his chest caught the light as he moved. "My daughter Lisa is among those taken," he said, his voice tight with controlled emotion. "I propose we stop discussing this as a diplomatic incident and start treating it as what it is: an attack on humanity itself." The chamber erupted in voices until President Warren called for order. "What can we possibly do?" asked the Chinese representative. "Their technology is centuries beyond ours. Their empire spans thousands of worlds. We have barely reached our own moon." Susan Clark stepped forward again. "When the Orions returned us to Earth, they left behind this." She held up a small metallic sphere. "It's a communication device. They expect us to use it to arrange terms of surrender and regular tributes of more humans for their collections and experiments." She placed the device on the table in front of her. "They believe we are weak, that we will sacrifice a few for the safety of many. They don't understand humanity at all." Admiral Murphy nodded. "Their arrogance gives us an advantage. They don't consider us a threat, which means they won't be expecting a fight." President Warren stood. "I propose we form an Earth Defense Alliance, every nation pooling resources, technology, and military assets. We need to advance our technology faster than any time in human history." "Even then," said the Russian representative, "how can we hope to stand against an empire that controls 10,000 worlds?" General Morgan answered, "By making them regret ever learning that Earth exists." The debate continued for hours, but the outcome was never in doubt. Humanity would not accept the abduction of its people. The vote was unanimous. Earth would go to war. Later that evening, in a secure room beneath the UN building, Admiral Murphy met with a small group that included Susan Clark, General Morgan, and scientists from the world's top research facilities. "We have 6 months at most before they return expecting our surrender," Murphy said. "In that time, we need to build weapons that can hurt them and ships that can reach them." Dr. Alan Foster, a physicist whose sister had disappeared 3 years earlier from a research station in the Arctic, spoke up. "I've been studying the material from their scout ship we shot down last year. I think I found a weakness in their shield technology." Susan looked at the faces around her. These people represented humanity's best hope. "They think we'll break," she said, "but they don't understand what happens when humans unite against a common enemy." General Morgan nodded gravely. "They took the wrong species daughters. Now they'll learn why that was a mistake." Dr. Alan Foster hadn't slept in 3 days. The dark circles under his eyes made him look older than his 36 years. Empty coffee cups surrounded him as he stared at the glowing equations on his computer screen. Behind him, a chunk of alien metal floated in a containment field, pulsing with strange energy. "I think I've got it," he said to no one in particular. The other scientists in the underground lab looked up from their work. Their shields operate on a frequency that shifts every 3 seconds. But there's a pattern. On the other side of the lab, Susan Clark watched as Dr. Foster rushed to a whiteboard and began writing. 3 months had passed since her daughter Melissa had been taken. 3 months of anger, fear, and now, perhaps, hope. "If we can predict the frequency shifts," Dr. Foster continued, "we can time our weapons to fire at the exact moment the shields are changing. There's a split-second vulnerability." General Morgan walked into the lab, followed by Admiral Murphy. "Tell me you have good news, Foster," Morgan said. His face had grown leaner in the months since his daughter's abduction. "Better than good," Dr. Foster replied. "I can give you a weapon that will cut through Orion shields like they aren't even there." Admiral Murphy nodded. "Then it's time you saw what we've been building with the technology you've already given us." The 4 of them took a high-speed elevator deep beneath the surface. When the doors opened, they stepped out onto a platform overlooking an enormous underground cavern. Susan gasped. Below them, stretching for miles in the artificial light, was a fleet of warships. Thousands of workers swarmed around the vessels, adding weapons, engines, and armor. "We moved the entire operation to the moon last month," Admiral Murphy explained. "These are just the prototypes. The real construction happens there, away from Orion spy satellites." "How many ships?" asked Susan. 50 completed, with another 100 in production. By next month, 200. We're using automated factories working around the clock." Dr. Foster pointed to one of the larger ships. "Is that?" "Yes," said General Morgan. "The first of our carriers. We named it after your sister. The EDA's Valerie Foster. It will carry 30 fighter craft and enough firepower to level a small moon." Dr. Foster's hands trembled. She would have been proud. On the other side of the world, Captain Diane Reynolds walked down a line of men and women standing at attention. The former commercial pilot had been chosen to train Earth's first space combat pilots. "Forget everything you know about flying in atmosphere," she told them. "Space is different. No air resistance, no up or down. Just you, your ship, and the enemy." A young pilot raised her hand. "Ma'am, the simulators show the Orion fighters are faster and more maneuverable than ours. How do we beat that?" Captain Reynolds smiled grimly. "They're better, but they're arrogant. They've dominated this galaxy so long they've forgotten what it's like to really fight. We will use that against them. And we have Dr. Foster's new weapons." In a space station orbiting Jupiter, hidden from Earth's view, another team worked on a different project. They had captured an Orion scout ship 3 years ago, and now they were reverse engineering its faster-than-light drive. "The principles are surprisingly simple once you understand them," said Dr. Maria Gomes as she guided her team. "It doesn't break the light-speed barrier. It bends space around the ship." Back on Earth, Susan Clark sat alone in her apartment, looking at a picture of Melissa. On her table lay reports of humanity's frantic preparations. The entire world economy had shifted to war production. Old enemies now worked together. A single purpose united humanity as never before. Her phone rang. It was Admiral Murphy. "We've intercepted an Orion communication," he said. "We have the location of a research station where they're holding human captives." Susan's heart raced. "Melissa?" "We don't know yet, but we're sending a strike team to find out. Captain Samuel Gray will lead the mission. The ship leaves in 48 hours. Susan closed her eyes. 6 months ago, humanity had been taking its first tentative steps into space. Now they were preparing to attack an empire that spanned the stars. They had no idea what they were starting when they took our children, she whispered. Captain Samuel Gray checked his weapon one last time as the EDS Vengeance dropped out of faster-than-light travel. The ship shuddered slightly as it entered normal space just outside the Orion sensor range. Through the viewport, he could see their target, a massive space station orbiting a red gas giant. "Stealth systems holding," reported the pilot. "They haven't detected us yet." Admiral Murphy's voice came through the comm system from Earth Command. "Captain Gray, remember your primary mission is to confirm the presence of human captives and extract them if possible. Secondary objective is to gather intelligence on Orion defenses." "Understood, sir," Gray replied. He turned to his strike team. 12 men and women in black combat suits. "We go in fast and quiet. Dr. Foster's shield disruptors will give us a 60-second window." The Vengeance moved silently toward the station, using the gas giant's radiation to mask its approach. When they were in position, Gray gave the signal. "Firing disruptors now," said the weapons officer. A pulse of energy shot from the ship and hit the station's shields. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a section of the shield flickered and disappeared. "Shields down. 60 seconds and counting," called the weapons officer. Gray and his team rushed to the dropship. "Launch now." The small craft detached from the Vengeance and sped toward the opening in the shields. They reached the station with 20 seconds to spare, attaching to an outer airlock. "Cutting through," said Lieutenant Kim as she placed a device on the airlock door. The metal melted away, and the team rushed inside. The first 2 Orion guards they encountered fell without raising an alarm, stunned by the human silent weapons. Gray checked his scanner. Human life signs detected. 3 levels down, eastern quadrant. The team moved through the station like shadows. Years of training on Earth had prepared them for this moment. They reached the holding area and found what they were looking for: humans in containment cells. "We're here to rescue you," Gray told the prisoners as his team worked to open the cells. "We're from Earth." A young woman with short brown hair looked at him in disbelief. "Earth sent you. All this way." "We're taking back our people," Gray replied simply. They freed 23 humans from the cells. Gray recognized 3 of the women from the diplomatic mission: Amy Peterson, Catherine Wright, and Nicole Barnes. They looked thinner and had strange markings on their arms where the Orions had experimented on them. "Where are the others?" Gray asked Amy. "Melissa Clark and Lisa Morgan." Amy's eyes filled with tears. "They took them to the Imperial homeworld. Melissa, Lisa, and Heather. The Emperor wanted them for his personal collection." An alarm suddenly blared through the station. "Our time's up," Gray said. "Everyone to the ship. Now." They fought their way back to the airlock, the rescued humans helping as best they could. Nicole Barnes surprised everyone by grabbing a fallen Orion weapon and using it with deadly accuracy. "I learned a lot about their technology while I was here," she explained grimly. They reached the dropship just as Orion reinforcements arrived. A firefight broke out in the corridor. Gray provided cover as the others boarded. "Captain, we need to go now," Lieutenant Kim shouted from the ship. Gray fired one last volley, then jumped aboard. The dropship detached and sped toward the Vengeance. On the bridge of the Vengeance, Gray watched as the station grew smaller behind them. The ship jumped to FTL speed just as Orion fighters launched in pursuit. Amy Peterson sat beside him, staring at the stars streaking past. "I didn't think anyone would come for us," she said quietly. "We would never leave you behind," Gray replied. Amy looked at him with hard eyes. "The things they did to us. The tests, the treatments. They don't see us as people, just interesting animals to study." Nicole Barnes joined them. "They have no idea what they've started. What did you call your ship?" "The Vengeance," Gray said. Nicole nodded. Good name, but they'll need more than one ship to understand what's coming for them. Gray contacted Earth Command. Admiral Murphy, mission partially successful. We've rescued 23 humans, including Peterson, Wright, and Barnes. Clark, Morgan, and Grant confirmed transferred to Imperial homeworld. There was a pause before Murphy responded. Understood, Captain. Bring them home. And well done. As the Vengeance sped back to Earth, Gray knew this was just the beginning. The Orion Imperium had just learned that humans could strike at them, but they hadn't yet grasped how far humanity would go to save its own. Emperor Zarax crushed the communication device in one of his 4 hands. The blue skin on his face darkened with rage as he paced the throne room. Impossible, he hissed. These primitives should not have been able to breach our defenses. Lord Virak, commander of the Imperial fleet, bowed low. Your Majesty, it appears the humans have advanced their technology faster than we anticipated. The research station reports they used some kind of device that temporarily disabled our shields. The Emperor turned his 6 eyes toward Virak. I want a punishment fleet sent to Earth immediately. Show these humans the price of defiance. Burn their major cities. Take 1,000 more specimens. It will be done, Your Majesty. Lord Virak bowed again and left to prepare his ships. In the Imperial Palace gardens, Melissa Clark tended to the strange alien plants as she had been forced to do each day since arriving. She wore the thin golden collar that marked her as Imperial property. Nearby, Lisa Morgan and Heather Grant worked on similar tasks, each wearing identical collars. A shadow fell across Melissa's work. She looked up to see one of the Emperor's advisors watching her. You should be honored, he said in accented English. Your species has shown unexpected spirit. Few races dare to attack an Imperial facility. Melissa's hands froze. What do you mean? The advisor smiled coldly. Your people mounted a rescue attempt. They even managed to free some specimens from the research station. Quite remarkable for primitives. Hope flared in Melissa's chest for the first time in months. Earth had not forgotten them. Earth was fighting back. The advisor leaned closer. It will not save you. Even now, a fleet travels to your homeworld to teach humanity its place in the galaxy. On Earth, the defense fleet gathered in orbit. 100 warships formed a protective barrier around the planet. At their center, the EDS Valerie Foster stood ready as the fleet's command ship. Admiral Murphy addressed the fleet from the Foster's bridge. This is what we've prepared for. Intelligence indicates an Orion fleet is on its way. They expect an easy victory against what they believe to be a primitive species. Let's show them how wrong they are. Captain Diane Reynolds commanded one of the fighter carriers. She spoke to her pilots as they prepared to launch. Remember your training. They're faster, but we're smarter. Use the Foster's new shield disruptors to create openings, then strike hard and get out. Nicole Barnes, now serving as an intelligence officer after her rescue, worked with Admiral Murphy on the Foster. They'll approach from this vector, she said, pointing to the tactical display. The Orions always strike from the direction they consider most symbolic, in this case, directly over New York, where the United Nations stands. The defense fleet repositioned based on her insight. Hours later, space rippled as the Orion punishment fleet arrived. 50 massive warships, each 10 times the size of Earth's largest vessel, emerged from faster-than-light travel. Lord Virak smiled with satisfaction as he observed the human ships. How quaint, he said to his officers. They built themselves a little fleet. Commence the attack. No mercy. The Orion ships moved forward, weapons charging. But instead of fleeing or breaking formation, the human fleet held position. Now, Admiral Murphy ordered. All 100 Earth ships fired their shield disruptors simultaneously. The Orion fleet's shields flickered and failed for precisely 3 seconds, just long enough for the second wave of weapons to hit. 20 Orion ships exploded immediately. The rest reeled from the unexpected damage. Lord Virak stared in disbelief. How? How did they know about the shield frequency? The human fighters launched, swarming around the damaged Orion vessels. They moved in patterns the Orions had never seen before, attacking with precision and coordination that seemed impossible for such a young species. On the Foster's bridge, Admiral Murphy watched with grim satisfaction. Press the attack. Don't give them time to regroup. The battle lasted only 30 minutes. When it ended, 25 Orion ships had been destroyed, and 15 more severely damaged. The remaining 10 retreated, jumping back to FTL travel with Lord Varek's flagship leading the flight. Earth had lost 12 ships, with another 20 damaged but repairable. As the fleet regrouped, Admiral Murphy received a transmission from Susan Clark at Earth Command. The rescued women provided critical intelligence, she said. They confirmed Melissa and the others are alive, kept as trophies in the Imperial Palace, and they gave us the coordinates for the Imperial homeworld. Murphy nodded. Then we know where to go next. Lord Varek knelt before Emperor Zorax, his head bowed low. The throne room was silent except for the Emperor's slow, angry breathing. You fled, Emperor Zorax said finally. You fled from primitives. Your Majesty, Varek replied, his voice shaking. They knew our shield frequencies. They had weapons designed specifically to counter our technology. This was not a primitive response. The Emperor leaned forward. And how could they know such things unless we underestimated them? Unless you failed to properly assess the threat. In another part of the palace, Melissa Clark heard whispers among the servants. The humans had defeated an Imperial fleet. It seemed impossible, yet the fear in the Orions' voices confirmed it was true. When she met Lisa and Heather in their shared quarters that night, Melissa shared what she had learned. Earth fought back and won, she whispered. They're coming for us. Lisa's eyes widened. How? The Orions have ruled for thousands of years. I don't know, Melissa said, but I heard one guard say they used our shield technology against us. Heather looked out the small window at the alien sky. They need to hurry. I heard the Emperor talking about moving us deeper into Imperial space. On Earth, the pace of war production had increased tenfold. Automated factories on the Moon, Mars, and in orbit around Earth produced warships at a rate that would have seemed impossible just months earlier. Dr. Alan Foster worked with Dr. Maria Gomes to improve the faster-than-light drive they had reverse-engineered from Orion technology. The original design has a flaw, Dr. Foster explained to Admiral Murphy. It leaves a trace in space that can be tracked. I've modified it so our ships can move undetected. Admiral Murphy nodded. Good. And what about the communication problem? Dr. Foster smiled. We've solved it. The new FTL communication system allows our ships to coordinate across vast distances in real time. The Orions don't have anything like it. They rely on courier ships to carry messages between systems. General Morgan reviewed the production reports with satisfaction. 1,000 ships completed. Another 2,000 in production. At this rate, we'll have the largest fleet in this sector of the galaxy within weeks. And the new weapons? Admiral Murphy asked. Dr. Foster's shield disruptors have been improved. They now create a 30-second window instead of just 3, long enough for our ships to do serious damage. Captain Samuel Gray met with Nicole Barnes to plan their next mission. After her rescue, Nicole had become an invaluable intelligence asset. Her time in captivity had given her unique insights into Orion technology and tactics. The Imperial homeworld has 3 times the defenses of any other planet, she explained, pointing to the star map. But there's a weakness. Their sensor grid has a blind spot here, where the planet's largest moon blocks their coverage. Gray studied the approach vector she indicated. It's tight, but a small team could slip through. Nicole nodded. Exactly what I was thinking. As Earth prepared its next move, the Orion Imperium faced something it hadn't experienced in millennia. Fear. Emperor Zorax summoned his High Council. These humans are becoming a problem. Their attack on our research station was annoying. Their defense of their homeworld is concerning. We must crush them now, before they grow stronger. An elderly counselor spoke up. "Your Majesty, perhaps we should return their people as a gesture off." He never finished his sentence. Emperor Zorak struck him down with an energy weapon. "Any other suggestions of weakness?" he asked the stunned council. No one spoke. "Good. Assemble the Grand Fleet. We will end this human problem permanently." What the Emperor didn't know was that Earth wasn't waiting for his attack. Multiple human battle groups had already departed, striking at Imperial outposts throughout nearby systems. And with each victory, they gained new allies, other species who had suffered under Orion rule for centuries. The Centauri, a race of skilled navigators, provided detailed maps of Imperial space. The Arcturus, long used as slave labor by the Orions, brought their knowledge of Imperial industrial centers. Even the Proxima, a species nearly wiped out by Imperial expansion, offered their remaining warriors to the human cause. Earth's war had become a galactic revolution, spreading faster than the Orions could contain it. 5 massive human battle fleets jumped into different systems across the Orion Empire. While the Emperor prepared his Grand Fleet to attack Earth, humanity brought the war to the Empire's doorstep. Admiral Murphy led the largest diversionary attack at the Orion shipyards in the Rigel system. 300 warships emerged from faster-than-light travel and immediately opened fire. The unprepared Orions scrambled to defend their vital shipbuilding facilities. "All ships target the construction platforms first," Murphy ordered. "Fighter squadrons keep their defensive ships busy." Captain Diane Reynolds led her fighters through the chaos. "Stay in formation. Use the debris fields for cover." Meanwhile, at the edge of the Orion home system, a small stealth ship slipped past the outer defense grid. The EDS Shadow carried only 20 people: Captain Samuel Gray, Nickel Barnes, and a team of Earth's best Special Forces soldiers. "Coming up on the blind spot now," said the pilot. 30 seconds until we're past the sensor grid." Nickel checked her equipment one last time. After months of planning, they were finally here. "Remember, once we reach the palace, we split into 3 teams. Team Alpha with me will locate and extract Melissa, Lisa, and Heather. Team Beta will retrieve data from the central computers. Team Gamma secures our escape route." Captain Gray nodded. "And if we find other human captives, we bring them all home," Nickel said firmly. The Shadow landed in a remote area of the Imperial capital planet. The city stretched to the horizon, golden towers reaching toward the sky. At its center stood the Imperial Palace, a massive structure that dominated the skyline. The team moved through the streets in small groups, wearing stolen Orion maintenance uniforms. They had memorized the patrol patterns based on intelligence from the liberated aliens who had joined their cause. As they approached the palace, Gray received a message from Admiral Murphy. "Diversionary attack successful. Imperial forces redirecting to defend Rigel and other targets. Palace security should be reduced. You have approximately 6 hours before they realize our true objective." The palace walls loomed ahead. Nickel led them to a service entrance, where a Centauri spy had disabled the security systems. They slipped inside and quickly neutralized the skeleton crew of guards. Nickel consulted her scanner. Human life signs detected on the upper levels. That's where they keep the living trophies. The team moved through the palace corridors, stunning the few guards they encountered. When they reached the upper levels, they found ornate doors with strange symbols. "These are the Emperor's private collection rooms," Nickel whispered. "Our people should be in there." Gray placed a small device on the door lock. It bypassed the security and the door slid open. Inside, they found what they were looking for, but the sight horrified them. 20 humans stood in transparent display cases like museum exhibits. Among them were Melissa Clark, Lisa Morgan, and Heather Grant. "Get them out," Gray ordered. "All of them." Nickel rushed to Melissa's case and deactivated it. Melissa stumbled forward, her eyes wide with disbelief. "Nickel, is that really you?" she asked. "It's me. We're taking you home." Tears filled Melissa's eyes. "You came all this way." "Of course we did," Nickel said as she helped remove the golden collar from Melissa's neck. Earth doesn't abandon its people. The team worked quickly to free all the captives. Melissa fell into Gray's arms, too weak to stand. "Thank you," she whispered. As Team Alpha freed the captives, Team Beta reported in. "Captain, we found something unexpected. There's a massive stasis chamber below the palace. Our scans show thousands of humans in storage." Gray's heart sank. "How many?" "At least 5,000, sir. They've been collecting us for decades." The mission had just become much more complicated. They couldn't possibly evacuate that many people with their small ship. Gray made a quick decision. New plan. "Nickel, get these people to the ship. I'll take half the team to the stasis chamber." "What are you going to do?" Nickel asked. "I'm going to wake them up," Gray said grimly. "All of them. And then I'm going to the throne room to have a word with Emperor Zarax." Nickel understood immediately. "You're changing the mission from extraction to revolution." Gray nodded. "The palace has minimal security. We have thousands of potential allies about to wake up very angry, and we have the element of surprise." "The Emperor is still here," Melissa said suddenly. "I heard the guards talking. He refused to leave even when the attack started. He doesn't believe humans could ever reach him here." Gray smiled coldly. "Then it's time we prove him wrong." Emperor Zarax sat on his throne, receiving reports of the human attacks across his empire. His 6 eyes narrowed as advisors spoke of lost outposts and damaged shipyards. He dismissed their concerns with a wave of his hand. "These are minor setbacks," he said. "The Grand Fleet will crush their homeworld, and these annoying raids will stop when they have no planet to return to." The doors to the throne room burst open. Guards rushed in, weapons ready, but fell quickly as stunner fire dropped them to the floor. Captain Samuel Gray walked in, followed by a group of armed humans. Emperor Zarax stood in shock. "Impossible. How did you primitives reach my palace?" Gray stepped forward. "You made a mistake when you took our people. You thought we were weak because we valued life. You didn't understand that this is exactly what makes humanity dangerous. We will cross the stars and bring down empires for even one of our own." The Emperor laughed. "Brave words from a primitive standing in the heart of an empire that spans 10,000 worlds. Your pathetic attacks are merely an inconvenience." "Are they?" Gray asked. "While we speak, 5,000 humans are waking up in your stasis chambers below. Your palace is already ours." For the first time, the Emperor looked uncertain. He pressed a button on his throne. "Guards, security breach in the throne room." No one came. Gray smiled. "They're busy. And your fleet is scattered across the empire chasing our decoys." Then a new voice spoke from the doorway. "He doesn't believe you, Captain." Melissa Clark walked in, no longer wearing the slave collar. Behind her came Lisa, Heather, and dozens of other freed humans. "You," the Emperor hissed at Melissa. "You were my favorite specimen." "And you were our biggest mistake," Melissa replied calmly. "We came to your empire in peace. You responded with cruelty. Now you'll see what happens when humanity fights back." Gray's communicator beeped. He answered it, keeping his eyes on the Emperor. "Gray here." Admiral Murphy's voice came through. "Captain, are you secure? The palace is under our control, but we're detecting a large energy signature from the throne room." Gray noticed the Emperor's hand moving slowly toward a hidden panel on his throne. "Stand down, Your Majesty. It's over." Emperor Zarax smiled. "Nothing is over. This throne contains a quantum detonator. If I can't have my empire, neither will you primitives." A shot rang out. The Emperor screamed as his hand was hit by a precise blast. Nickel Barnes stood at the entrance, her weapon still raised. "Sorry I'm late," she said. "Had to make sure our ride home was secure." Gray's communicator beeped again. This time, it was Susan Clark. "Captain, I have news you should share with our royal friend. The Earth fleet has positioned itself around every major imperial world. Dr. Foster developed something new for this occasion. Gray smiled at the Emperor. Would you like to see? On the view screen in the throne room, an image appeared of Earth's fleet in orbit around a nearby moon. A single ship fired a weapon. The beam hit the moon, and cracks spread across its surface. Moments later, the moon shattered into countless pieces. The Emperor stared in horror. What is this weapon? We call it the Planet Cracker, Gray said. Right now, similar ships are positioned around your core worlds, including this one. Surrender, or your empire becomes asteroids. Emperor Zarak slumped on his throne. 10,000 years of imperial rule ended not with a grand battle, but with simple defeat. 1 month later, representatives from 100 worlds gathered in the former imperial palace. The Orion Imperium was no more. In its place, a new galactic federation formed, with each species given equal voice. Melissa Clark stood at the podium, now serving as Earth's ambassador to this new alliance. Beside her stood her mother, Susan. We came to the stars seeking friendship, Melissa told the assembly. We found tyranny instead. But from that darkness, we have built something better. Let this federation stand as proof that no empire, no matter how ancient or powerful, can stand against the will of free people. In the audience, Captain Gray sat next to Nickel Barnes. Was it worth it? He asked quietly. Nickel watched as former slaves and oppressed species took their places in the new government. Ask them, she said. On Earth, a memorial stood where the United Nations building once had. It honored those who never returned home. But around it, a spaceport bustled with activity as ships from dozens of worlds came and went freely. The galaxy had learned an important lesson. Never underestimate humans, especially when they fight for their own.